hand up if you want a question.
What do you got, Adam?
All right, I'm going to give you Cornelia.
Where is SQL Azure going?
Where is it going? I don't know. His question is, where is SQL Azure going? I have no idea. I don't know. I haven't really thought about it. Where do you want it to go? I can tell them. Geolocation. So you want geolocation?
Yeah, geolocation, replication. That's the thing that basically it's too much danger to deploy anything.
So it's too dangerous to deploy things. Let's see if Guthrie's online. Link. All right, we'll log in. Yeah, so okay, so geolocation and stuff like that. Oh, I will tell you this though. The Windows Azure user voice site has sucked for a number of years because some people forgot about it. And I've been pounding on the new owner, and the new owner has now hired someone. So there's a full-time guy whose job is Azure Community, and he's now in charge of the user voice site. So if you spend any time looking at the Azure user voice site, it usually was just a lot of complaining. But now stuff's getting done and checked off, and dates are coming in. So that's the kind of thing where I could go and what I would do is I'd find that guy and look at the Azure user voice site, and it's going to get updated. He's just been hired in the last month, and he's just banging through it. And I think it's actually midnight. So Guthrie just, yeah, okay, so it's 12:36 a.m. Guthrie just got offline an hour ago, so I missed him by an hour. Otherwise, I would ask him about that. So I apologize. Nick Harris? Yeah. We'll try to find you an answer, but I would say that I would probably go up and look at the user voice site because there is a guy whose job it is to update that now. Okay, but I do encourage you, by the way, when thinking about storage, to take a look at Troy's stuff because he's made me completely think about table storage differently for really massive scale.
Well, I can tell you with SQL Azure, it's got an incredible lots more resilient in the last 6 months. TFS is the largest SQL Azure customer.
Are they?
Yep, they are. And they even have to pay SQL Azure.
Yeah, that is a funny thing, though, that we actually, Microsoft has to pay each other. Like we want to do a user group, you have to like cross-pay and stuff. If people get MSDN licenses, they have to pay different groups. So it's very complicated.
Harry did 2 sprints in a row, which was just conserving dollars on SQL Azure.
Yeah, people who are clients of Azure do have to pay. It's not free for Halo to run on Azure. They have to pay somebody. Yeah.
Hey, Scott. So you mentioned about open web standards, right?
Yeah,
so
yeah,
Microsoft is pushing towards open web standards.
Trying to.
Yeah. So
hold your mic a little closer there, buddy.
So what's coming up in the next 6 months or 1 year? What's evolving in the open web standards that the web developers should be aware of?
So we've rebuilt the HTML editor to be HTML5. From the start. Like the original HTML editor inside of Visual Studio before 2013 was kind of HTML 4.01/XHTML. So we're trying to bake in HTML5 from scratch. We're trying to build in support for all the different new tags, being able to make it so you can have inline JavaScript, inline CSS, links to CSS. If I go and make like a new div and then go class, where it knows that there are CSS projects in this particular project, so we're noticing those, and then we're giving you IntelliSense for IDs and classes, tiny little things like that. If I go in here and bring in like a meta and then say name, I'm bringing in stuff like Apple and iTunes and Twitter cards, stuff that are not just standards but de facto standards, because you want to make that kind of stuff easier. If I go and do like a meta and I bring in like char set, there are a billion char sets, but those are the ones that are the standards. If someone goes and does something in a new div, we used to fill up the IntelliSense to the point where it was not usable because ARIA was too big. So now we have multi-level IntelliSense, so I can get ARIA and then it opens up. We just added NG, so then that opens up as well. So, Angular, Ember, Backbone, Knockout, we're trying to put support in here where it's going to feel more than autocomplete type ahead. I like Sublime, I like autocomplete type ahead, it's useful, but having real smarts baked in are really nice. This is not a standard, actually, but it's really awesome. We built in support for Emmet. Does anyone know Emmet or Zen coding? So if I wanted a div, I can type div, yay, and I can go tab, and that's wonderful. And then I can go and say section or super poopy or whatever. And you see how it's keeping track of that. And that's nice, and that saves a little bit of time. But if I want to go and do div, and then make a class, and then make a class foo, and then, this kind of boring, kind of tedious work. I could go and say, well, I want a div with the class foo, write it like it's a CSS, right? And then underneath that, I want another one that's bar. And underneath that, I want another, but I want an ID of Baz. But underneath that, I want a UL, and I want an LI, but I want 5 LIs. And then underneath that, I want some text that says, you rock, but I need a number because I'm going to have 5 of those. There we go. Right, and don't clap yet. I don't want your pity. I don't need your pity. And then I could, but I don't really want it to say you rock. I want it to be like lorem ipsum text. But I only want like 3 words of lorem ipsum text. So that's kind of cool. Oh yeah. And then people will be like, look at that, like that's too hard to learn. Well, it's not too hard to learn. It's CSS selectors and that thing, right? And then that's just the times. We all learn that in maths. See how I said maths? Because I'm from call my wife. And then how do I go up? How do I go up 1? Right? I would go up 1, and then do another, and that's at a different level. So if you add that with something like Bootstrap, where I can just go and say like button large, or say I want a button large, you can bang out forms as fast as you can type. That's called Emmet or Zen coding, and that's in Web Essentials. So if you like that, we'll promote it and make that like a regular thing. So whatever you can think of in an editor, we'll try to do. We've actually been thinking about doing some other crazy stuff. This isn't necessarily a web standard, but let's see if I can do something silly. So here's, actually that's probably too big. Let me find a graphic. Okay, here's a graphic of Ballmer clapping. And then I'll put him here, right? And then I'll put him here, right? And then I can go like this, and I get width and height attributes automatically. And then even if you're awesome, because clearly you have to inline your 400K animated GIF, right? Because it's just, spriting is important. So now I've got an inline, and then Vim guy can read that actually, just by looking at it, right? And then just to prove that that's really happening, Vim guy, I'm going to change that 7 to an 8. And you notice that nope, he's cached it. I was going to actually change that, because what happens is if you make it wrong, you can actually mess up the base64ing, and then yeah, now it doesn't work. So I want to point out that, yeah, see, look, couldn't locate image. I've gone and broken it. And then I can undo it. Yeah, see? It's really decoding the image, because that was a phenomenally bad idea to do that. But try that in Vim, I guess is what I'm saying. Yeah. I'm just playing. I love Vim people. It's okay.
So I might take one from the live streamers.
Both of the people who are watching, what do they have to say? How many people are watching?
You might want to pass this.
Thousands?
Don't know. The internet figured out it wanted Silverlight for SPA. Why did Microsoft say no?
The internet figured out that
it wanted Silverlight for single-page applications. Why did Microsoft say no?
The internet said no to that. In fact, that's a longer conversation, but I'll show you what I would say when I go tomorrow. So tomorrow at the YOW conference, I would encourage people to get tickets and check it out. It's a totally different talk, and it's kind of awesome. And it's got lots of animated GIFs. But here's what I think about that, and I just have an opinion, is that the idea was that we've got this web, and then we added these virtual machines to it. And this was the first one, and I was there, right? I mean, I worked at Nike, and I did work in Java, and I did RMI and all that kind of great stuff in '99 and 2000, and I worked in Java for years. And then we said, we need another virtual machine. We want a CLR-based virtual machine. And then these guys were like, yeah, but we have YouTube, and there's another virtual machine. But what was the internet really trying to say? It wasn't saying we want this, or we want this, or we want that. They were saying that we really want a virtual machine that has all of these characteristics, that has graphics and storage and threading and events and networking. And the internet was not delivering. The internet did not deliver, and that's why those things needed to exist. But the internet has delivered one, and that is JavaScript. And JavaScript is the virtual machine that is in every browser, and it is now multi-threaded, and it has multi-core JITting, and it has local storage and graphics and open WebGL now and IE11. And we have a virtual machine now. So while I think Silverlight's great for line of business apps and text boxes over data and stuff like that, the idea is that plugins move the web forward, and now the web does what those plugins can do. So then when do you need a plugin? You need a plugin for when the web can't do it. And then that'll surpass the web, and then the web will be able to do that thing, and then you'll move up. I mean, Google Earth was a plugin, and that no one complained about that because it did something awesome. So we installed the Google Earth plugin. Even today, if you want to do a Google Hangout, you need a plugin. If you want to do Netflix and DRM video, you need a plugin, except for you guys, you have nothing. So then you torrent everything, and that's fine. And no one complains about the Google Hangouts plugin or the Google Earth plugin. And then when WebRTC happens, everyone will be like, oh, God, the Google Hangouts plugin is dead. No, I mean, it did its job, and now something else will come out. So I don't feel bad about it. Microsoft didn't kill Silverlight. The web happened. It's my opinion.
John Liu, he's the master of SharePoint add-ins, so we'll see.
This is a knockout question. Sorry, TypeScript question.
I thought you were going to punch me.
TypeScript question.
TypeScript.
So in the Web Essentials, there used to be a split screen for TypeScript. Who's now going to take care of that? So they took it out because I think the TypeScript team wants to do it.
Yeah, I'll tell you everything I know. Give me 1 second here. Well, it turns out, John, hang on. Yeah, so what happened was, no, I know what happened. This is Mads Christensen. He's a very nice man. The question was, what happened to it? Well, it turns out that there was a lot of stuff that was removed when Web Essentials moved over to 2013. And the deal was that there are extensions to Visual Studio like Web Essentials that come out every 2 weeks. Well, the TypeScript is also an extension to Visual Studio. TypeScript support in Web Essentials has a dependency on Web Essentials and Web Essentials on TypeScript, so there's these circular things, and what was happening was it would destabilize Visual Studio if these two things were moving at different speeds. So the TypeScript team just said, I need you to move that out and wait a little while for version 1.0 and chill out. So he's explaining it right here, that in order to repeat the same mistake, we've opted not for having TypeScript. We're doing it to avoid collisions between the two tool sets. The TypeScript team called them and said, listen, give us a second. TypeScript isn't 1.0 yet. We'll get it out to 1.0, and then you can work it out. So the team wants split screen to work. What he's saying is split screen support for TS wasn't there. But it didn't make sense from a responsibilities perspective. I'll give you another example, and this is, I guess we're streaming so everyone needs to see this now, but .json files. Not .js, but .json. That will have a different syntax highlighter and a different autocomplete engine. You're not going to have IntelliSense for JS inside of JSON files because they're slightly different. Who should be in charge of that? This is an example of like what I would have to deal with in my job. The Node.js folks release the Node.js tools. It's the same people that did Python for Visual Studio. Well, we're in charge of ASP.NET and web tools. Node and the Node team is the same folks that do Python. They're not on our team, they're in a different team. If they went and put in support for .json files, then you would have Node support for .json when ASP.NET did it. You'd have to install the Node tools, and then you'd get it. But if we did it on the ASP.NET team, and then you install the Node stuff, then there'd be a collision. So then who owns that? Well, we, ASP.NET, owns .html and .htm, so we should own .json. So we call them and we say, since we ship in Visual Studio and the Visual Studio SKU includes that, we'll handle .json support for you. So those little dances, it's not a huge deal, it's not a fight, it's a discussion that happens between just who's going to be on top. And in this case, the Web Tools team needs to handle that, and then that will light up. So while we work out .json support, it would be inappropriate for Mads to add it, because he could put it into Web Essentials. The JSON folks, the Node folks put it into Node, or Web ASP.NET could put it in ASP.NET. Same problem with TypeScript. Does that make sense? So once we figure out all these things, as again, these are talking about daily builds, then you'll have it and it'll work great everywhere. Okay? We're dancing still. That's exactly right. We're still dancing. Excellent. Well said, sir.
All right, I'll take a live stream question. The Windows Phone user voice site sucks. Can you talk to someone, Scott? Maybe that's for Andrew Coates. Can you talk to someone?
I don't know.
See, they don't understand
Sorry.
all the different departments. Yeah.
Andrew
Coates is on the phone.
I mean, dude, yeah, I mean, Microsoft's a big company. That's not
this
even,
type of inconsistency drives people crazy.
Listen, I feel for the guy, right? I mean, I've got an Xbox that's got a ring of death. I know how it feels.
All right, I'll take another
it
one.
back to the store. I can't help you with the Windows. Maybe try anyone who works on Windows Phone but me, because I don't.
Andrew, you'll sort that out? Yep.
Andrew's on that.
How does
I feel bad. Like, what can I do, you know?
How does Browser Link update CSS when it's been pre-compiled by LESS or SASS?
How does it do it? Well, let me see if I can find a slide to explain how that works. It's magic. The idea is that we just use source maps. We just have to walk it all the way back. We have to figure out how it works. I mean, source maps exist, so we don't want to try to use any feature that, we don't want to invent anything that already exists. Those problems exist. So the same way that, like, if Chrome knows about a source map, Chrome DevTools now has source map support, and all we need to do is figure out from where that came. So if I go into Chrome, this is on Mads' blog, and I hit F12, and I go over here. See how it says site min? So we know it's on line 1 of site min, but that means that it's everywhere because site min is just one line, right? So if I go and do that, yes, of course it's on line 1 because it's all line 1. If he had a source map on his site, I would be able to go into that and tell you exactly where it came from. And then rather than going to site min, the browser itself would know, and then we would take that from the browser and tell Visual Studio and then open the file. So it's a responsibilities issue. If the browser can tell us what line it's on, then we'll tell Visual Studio the name of the file on the line, and then we'll open that file, and then we'll highlight that line. Right. Yeah. Open standards, that's the goal. Source maps.
Next question is from Troy Hunt. We're very proud of
Troy is going to crush me with
Mr. Security.
Giant brain.
I don't know if you're going to have an answer for this, but you showed the CDN right at the start, and I went in this week and I tried to get the CDN.
Yeah.
And I said, you don't have one, and if you don't have one, you now can't get one. So what's happening with the CDN?
I don't know, I have to ask them, but let's just use our brains and guess, right? So if the CDN used to be there, and now it's not there, and I know that for a while you had to go into the old version of the portal, and then there was like the previous portal, it was the Silverlight portal, and then now it's moved. I can only assume that means someone's building something, and it's in that state right now where it's been moved and it's being built and it's going to show up again somewhere. Have you ever been in the Azure portal before where it actually tells you that it's been updated?
Yeah, reload.
Yeah. So there's you're in the portal, push reload, and you hit refresh and you get a new portal. Like just in the time it's taken me to be here, I know that when I got to Australia, these features were not there. You know what I mean? And yesterday, or the day before, that appeared. So my only guess is I could call someone, something's going to light up somewhere and a checkbox will appear. They're updating the portal all the time. So I would try user voice or ask someone you know in Azure or hit F5 and it'll probably get updated.
I did actually try someone in Azure and they were a little bit evasive about it. It seems like there's a bit of ambiguity.
Were they a nice person? Did you ask someone nice or ask someone mean? You should ask a nice person.
I think they were nice, but I wouldn't
I don't
say
know.
they were. No.
I have no idea. I don't work on that team, but I can go and ask.
Yeah,
but I would only assume that something is going to appear like this, and it'll be a switch.
Yeah. Okay. It's just. I mean, it was there and then it was gone. Is the difference? I mean, normally it's F5
well, I mean,
and you get
they're not
stuff.
trying to hurt you.
No. Sure.
So I don't know. Yeah, it's a good question.
No, okay. Cool.
Nick Harris, I guess, is the main guy. Is that correct? Yes. Nick would be a good guy. I honestly don't know. If I knew, I would tell you.
All right, we're going to ask Mehmet Ozdemir. He builds a lot of CRM add-ins.
Simple question.
Uh-oh. Well, that last one was a killer. I don't know what.
Sydney/Melbourne data centers for Azure. When?
So yesterday someone asked me that question, and I texted Guthrie. So he said...
Never.
No, I'm just telling you. I mean, I don't think he would mind. Let me. So this is my phone. Here's me talking to Guthrie. He says,
it's back to front.
I've got my, it's back to front. Let's fix that. How do you push the mirror button? One of these things does mirror. That's recording. I'm freaking out. Well, there it is in mirrored. I can't tell you. Sorry, I was trying to be like really transparent and show you my text messages with Guthrie. I have dinner with my in-laws, but I'm free tomorrow. No, that's a different one. He says, coming in 2014. We're working hard and building it out now. So I don't know. Not now, but Guthrie texted me coming in 2014. I was trying to show you, but it was backwards.
All right, so we're going to give it to Jeremy Child. He's from the middle of New South Wales, so he must have driven 4 hours to get here tonight.
I really don't have a question, but sometimes the staging and deployment has a list of things, and then when you press the swap button, they're completely different, the little preview down the bottom.
Where are we looking?
So, yeah, go into cloud services.
Okay.
You've got staging and deployment, and then press the swap button.
The what button?
The swap. Like you swap the staging, you switch them around.
Oh, these are all cloud services for virtual machines. I don't think that's going to work for... these are all cloud services for VMs.
Okay. Sometimes, so say you have a deployment that just came from TFS.
Sure.
And then you go to switch it.
For a web roll or worker roll?
Yep. Okay. And then you go to switch it, and then the little status down the bottom tells you you're going from here to here. Mm-hmm. And they are completely different dates and times from what's the topmost in the lists.
Now, when you say different, do you think that they are reversed or wrong or made up or random or different?
Random. It appears that they're just random. That's what it appears.
Does anyone else see that?
And then you just go yes because you trust in your heart that you've got it right.
Okay. So he nodded his head. So is this like a known thing?
Perhaps.
Okay. So email me that question at Scott HA, and then I'll ask. I don't know. I've never seen that before. But it's one of those things where it's like, you ever seen that? And then his head started nodding, and then one other person nodded. And other people are like, I don't know. Like, it works on my machine is not a good, I don't know. I've never seen that before. But you're seeing it all the time. It could be latency. Could be, there's a back-end thing. I think it's called like RDFE or whatever. It's the Azure thing, right? Like, if I go, because the platform, this thing here, the portal, okay? When it goes and says, Azure VM list, right? You can say -- JSON, and it'll show you what's underneath. So if I were trying to debug this, and again, I don't work on that team, there's the JSON, okay? See that? And it's telling me way more information that appeared in the thing.
You can get that by pressing F12, usually it's the same API.
Right. So this gentleman's absolutely right. It's the same API. So what I want to see before I freak out and call the cavalry is, can you get it to do this at that level?
Perhaps the dates are UTC or something like that?
So the question I'm trying to ask as we debug this live in front of everyone is it wrong on the wire? If it's right on the wire, then it's a problem with the UI for the portal. Meaning, if it's never wrong in here, then it's the portal, and I know how to talk to those guys. But if it's wrong on the wire, sometimes, then maybe something's wrong on the server and one of those machines is in the wrong time zone and we figure that out.
Or detecting my culture in the browser is incorrect.
Absolutely. So help me figure that out and then I'll route it to the right team.
Okay.
But I wanted to point out from a transparency perspective, -- JSON gets you a lot of really interesting insight here. So like, for example, if I said Azure VM list, before it just says, here's the name of the VMs. But what's really coming back is, look, this is a VM, and it's got a load balanced endpoint, and there's the name of the port, the name of the page that I'm looking at. I mean, you get way more information when you're doing that. So you can get some interesting insight by doing that. And that'll help you understand that we're not trying to hide anything from you. And the fact that the portal is a client of this backend API, as is your .NET or Ruby or JSON or Node or whatever you're calling, can give you insight into the larger system in the backend. Good question.
What I do want to do is tell you about a brand new initiative that SSW has done. So I'll play a quick video so you've seen it.
I've been running SSW for 20 years. I've also been a lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney for many years. And I think the gap is getting wider between what they're being taught and what employers need for the guys to hit the ground running and be able to do real work.
It is a new initiative. We've been training around the country for, I don't know, 15 years or so. This is done very differently. It's not the lecture style we're typically used to. It's got 3 main groups of people that have been applying. It's the typical experienced developer who has got, behind the 8 ball. They're not used to doing things with, ISC containers and dependency injection, and they don't do Scrum at their company. They're quite behind. Then there's the young .NET developer who we think will be the major market, and that is the person that's just finished university. They know a lot of theory, but they haven't actually gone and done it. They're going to get stuck. They're going to Google. They're going to go down another rabbit warren, and then but this way, all those blockages, they won't be blocked. They're going to have a couple of senior software architects with them all the time. Adam Stevenson, you might know, who ran that MBC course around Australia that was sold out and really loved. Then there's the other one. The main sign-ups has come from the development manager, not him himself, but he's got a team of guys and he's recruited people and he's sending them here before they join his team. You can find someone who's okay at UI, but they don't understand, they're no good at coding, like .NET coding, the middle tier. Or you can find someone who's okay at the middle tier, but is not familiar with Bootstrap and a whole lot of UI technology. So it's hard to find that blended guy. And even if you do find one of those, they're not used to doing things in a Scrum manner, and they don't know the TFS, ALM lifecycle, all that type of stuff. The employers that come to see the presentations at the end of the 9 weeks, they're going to see what has been developed for the 9 weeks. They're going to see what the guy's like. And that's a bloody lot better than just reading resumes. They're going to see a whole lot of people, they're going to fill in a form, and then they're going to basically put forward an offer to some of those guys. Okay, the next question is George Zabinski, another CRM guy.
Pressure.
I had the small WordPress site which was running on some server or whatever, and I saw Azure websites and so, oh, free sites, I like that.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
cool.
Free's
so
good.
Move there, yeah, okay. Oh, domain name. Oh, damn, right. Okay, shared, move there.
Sure.
Right. So starts to work more or less. So fast, slow, sometimes it's fine, right? Then something weird starts to happen. So it shows, oh, you used 20-second CPU time. So oh, bugger, that's a lot. That sounds a lot. Is it a lot?
Yeah, that's okay.
Okay, then it says ClearDB, this PHP thing.
Mm-hmm.
You have 4 connections. I have no idea. Is it a lot? So the website goes up and down. It sort of locks sometimes.
Yeah, sure.
When it works, it's fine. When it doesn't work, it doesn't work. So I start throwing money at it. So let's move to standard. Let's scale it up. Let's buy the Venus plans or whatever they have in ClearDB.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, I had the same problem.
So how do I approach in general scaling it up? When do I start to scale? It doesn't help me. Like 20 seconds. Is it a lot? So you had 6 HTTP errors.
Yeah, so
whatever.
I'll be totally straight with you. And I'm going to tell you this as Scott, the guy who did the same thing, not any official Microsoft anything, whatever, because it's being filmed. So what the gentleman did is he went and he said, I want to make a website. Great. So I'll make one, and I'll do it on, I'll do WordPress, because everyone loves WordPress. And WordPress uses MySQL for the back end. There's a store here, and the store is partners. These are other people that you can do stuff with. One of them is ClearDB. That makes it's MySQL in the cloud. There are managed MySQL. Now, we've talked about virtual machines. We've talked about storage. They manage virtual machines in the Azure data center that run MySQL. So I think that's a great idea. So I sign up for MyDB. You get a free 20 meg one if you want. And these guys and gals at this company here then now appear in add-ons, right? So then they would show up here. And then they have like their plans, gold, silver, and platinum, but they name them after planets. It's like Venus and Saturn and whatever. So I hit this problem where I get 4 connections, and then they say, well, they want 20 bucks or 50 bucks or whatever, and they give you different versions. But what you're paying for is, I want a database. You figure it out, because I don't know anything about MySQL. So I paid them their 50 bucks, which is billed through Azure, but they're a different company, right? So like New Relic does management. If I click there, what'll happen is, I'll say manage, I'm going to do a single sign-on, and there's a magic token, and now I'm automatically logged into my account, right? And my Azure, it's magical Azure. Same thing you experienced, right? And for some of these guys, these are great. Like, I don't know squat about Mongo, but I signed up with Mongo Lab, and I get a free one. With that particular partner, and this is speaking as Scott, not as guy who works for Microsoft, right? Because guy who works for Microsoft supports all of our partners. Ding. Customer who tried to deal with this ClearDB, I found that the amount of money that I was going to spend, 40, 50 bucks a month, was an unreasonable amount of money. So I hit that exact problem, and what I was doing is I was running my Sendy PHP application that sends out to 9,000 of my people who do, and this is a plug for my newsletter, Scott's link blog of wonderful things. This only gets run once a month, right? Your blog might get popular if it gets on Hacker News. With that particular partner, you have to pay them, and then you've paid them for the month. What I wanted is, I send this thing out like every month or two. So I need to ratchet it up and ratchet it down. So to be totally frank with you, what I did is I went over to here and I made a virtual machine. Now, I don't know squat about Linux. Well, I do, but I mean it's old Linux from back in the day. I know enough about Linux to get PHP and Apache working, and that's fine. But I thought about MySQL, and I said to myself, you know, I'm going to make a Windows VM extra small, and I'm going to go up to the website, and I'm going to go to mysql.org, and I downloaded MySQL because I like my Windows, and I downloaded MySQL database from this partner, put this tiny virtual machine together, and I'll log in and I'll show you my MySQL database, which has now unlimited connections to the limit of the virtual machine. This virtual machine here is extra small. And then once a month, when I send my newsletter out, I make it big. I wait a day, and then I bring it down again. So for you, I would encourage you to move your thing over to a virtual machine. You could have PHP and MySQL live on the same VM and ask a Linux friend to do it for you. You could do what I did, because I was learning, and I did this on purpose. That is Linux. This is the web server. This is Windows, because I was learning. I wanted to see. This runs MySQL. This runs the website. So if it became popular, I can scale them independently. But you don't have to do that. It's up to you. But I think that the combination of Azure websites plus this particular partner was difficult. So you could keep the website in PHP and then just move the database to a tiny, tiny virtual machine that you choose to maintain.
But in general, the question, yeah.
I don't think that partner is a great example, in my opinion, for what I needed to do. So I chose to move off them, and I give my money to virtual machines, then puts me into control. And this is my MySQL, and here is my SQL Workbench, and here is my database, and I can go and log into this, and I can look at it and manage it in the cloud, and it works great for me because it looks like a database engine. I mean, I'm not a genius, but I was able to figure out this part. You see what I'm saying? So I would encourage you to do the same, and I think you'll likely be happier with it. Now, from a larger scale perspective, forgetting about that one partner, the question of I kept getting shut down is a good one. If I go to websites and I go to shared, he was saying, well, you use too many minutes. Well, if you're using free websites on Azure, we don't care about you. We're free. It'll work great for brochureware, for testing, for small sites, for demos, for this kind of stuff. Shared is you're on a virtual machine with everyone else, and his machine could slow you down. But there is a guarantee. And in this case, a shared website, this is one of my actual live websites that matters to me. It is a real site. It's called smallest.net. It's a real site. Let's see if it's up, because it'd be funny to talk about it and have it be down. And it lets you, do you have .net? And if you do, I'll tell you. Looks like you're running Chrome. That's totally cool, but I don't know if you've got .net. So let's run IE. That one doesn't know. So I can run the Dotnet Checker, which is a little app of mine. And it'll go and it'll tell me if I've got .net. And I do this so people can know what version of .net they have. And it'll say, ah, we found .net. You're totally up to date. You have a full copy of .net. I get a couple of 10, 15,000 views every month. That's not that big of a deal. I get 4 hours of CPU time per day, shared. If I got on Hacker News, maybe it would hit that 4 hours. And then it would reset, exactly like cell phone minutes. I get CPU time. This puts it in a really clear perspective. 2.5 minutes every 5 minutes. So that means I can work hard half of 5 minutes. And then it resets, in this case, in 5 minutes. I get a gig of file system storage and half a gig of memory in an hour. So if I had a memory leak, let's just say, it would go up and it would max out, and then it would reset in 53 minutes, and it would reset that thing. But shared, standard, is an actual VM. If I go to scale on a standard, and I'll tell you a little secret here. Look here, it says 13 sites. Okay, this is again Scott talking. We're not streaming live on the internet. Azure price calculator. I'm being critical here. I'm going to click on this. I'm going to go to websites. And I'm going to hit shared. Here's the cost. Okay. Oh, okay. $10, cool. That sucks. Azure sucks, I'm gone. That's how the mind goes. That's insane. You probably did the same thing. I think this sucks. But here's what I think they should do. It's getting expensive. Here, one VM. Okay, $75, a little spendy. But okay, I get it. You're insane. One VM. Up to 500 websites. To the limit of that VM. Now, word on the street, I have heard that there'll be an extra small. Because I know there's an extra small VM, I can click on virtual machines, and I can say, give me one VM for $15. Give me a small, same price, similar to what we just saw. If I go back over here, and I say shared, once you get to 6, you're looking at real money. But as soon as you have one here, I can have as many as I can put in there within the limits of this. Here's the part where I don't think this pricing calculator makes itself well known. Once I put it in standard, all of these virtual machines are in the same location. New VMs, new sites, where did Adam go? Adam is dreamy. Let's look at Adam. Scale. Where is Adam? Adam's in West US. Adam's not costing me a penny because he's in here in this standard VM, and I can have another 100 of these. Does that make sense? 500. Up to the limits of what this can do. So all those numbers about seconds of minutes and stuff, once you've graduated to that, it's not a big deal. Now, this is where I think we dropped the ball. 0 is a great price. That's not a bad price. Now we're in this weird, pricey place where those are 4 sites that really can't scale very far, and that's real money. But now you might as well just use a host of your own. I think, personally, Scott, that extra small, 15 bucks, that'd be nice. I think the best deal on Azure today is this, if you have more than 5 or 6 sites. Right? I have 15 now, because Adam. But those 2 are priced differently. That one's shared. I don't want to pay much for that. This guy's in North Central. Why would I do that? Because Carl Franklin, who owns Hanselman, runs the database where? North Central. I don't own the Hanselman database. So the question was, do I run in West US and pay for the bandwidth to talk to the database in West, or run there? That's a little spendy, frankly. I should probably go here and save some money on Hanselman and change that to shared. Maybe should I do that? But if I had standard, I could set auto scale, and then things get more interesting. Once you're on standard, you not only get domains and lots of different stuff, you get auto scale. I have not yet done the math to find out, is the money I'm paying for a standard site 60 bucks because I'm in West US, less than I would pay. I'll just do it right now. I'm going to switch him. He's no longer on dedicated resources. But now I might pay more, or I might get shut off if someone decides to attack Hanselman and they'll use more than a certain amount of CPU. But if I moved it over to West US, it would effectively become free from a CPU perspective because he'd just be living with everyone else. It's just like picking a new roommate. New flatmate, no problem. But now I got to pay his long-distance phone call to the other data center. This isn't an Azure thing. This is a cloud thing. Does that make sense? Same thing like at the very, very beginning of the talk where we talked about the graphics. The graphics, where do they live? They live in a folder. How much hard drive do I have? I get a gig. That's fine until I have 2. That's a cloud problem, not an Azure problem. Then I stick that into Azure storage. Same, all this that I've just talked about exists on any cloud. To your experience, you had a lousy experience because you had your website in one place in shared, minimal resources. So you're fighting for contention there. It's getting shut off. It's getting shut down. And then you had your database managed over there. So then the question is Azure the best place for your small WordPress blog? No, it's not. A $5 host is. And that's where you should run your blog. But if you have MSDN, you have free money. If you have MSDN and you have Azure, you have a place to learn. I would recommend that you do it in a VM. But if you want to run WordPress and that's your job, then you should do it on a WordPress blogging hosting site. Long-winded, but I think that expresses Azure and Azure pricing and the problems of doing things in the cloud. If you judge Azure based on a crappy experience running your blog, you're not getting the full experience. Thanks for letting me be rambly, but I think I learned something right there. All right, let's see if my website's still up. What?
Why don't you move everything to the north and be with
Why
that
don't I move
shit?
everything to the north?
Yes.
Because today, I live in West US. This makes me happy. And I cannot easily move stuff. There is no way to just move it yet. But this was something I could literally delete, recreate, Azure publish, wait for DNS to populate it, be down for a couple of hours. But where's the database? I don't know. These are all different things. Adam, well, we can delete him. But some of them were Git deployed. Some of them were deployed with WebMatrix. These are sites that I care about. Actually, I don't care about that site. I'm going to stop that site. I don't have to even think about paying for that. But this is a problem. So I just switched hanselminutes.com to shared. I'll save $30, $40. But there is now a limit on that. And it will only use 4 hours a day. Previous instances of Hanselman, because I wrote this code, used to talk to the database all the time. But now I cache everything. And I know I don't have any leaks, so I'm using 130 megs. Why? Because I cache everything. I cache everything. I could go and load test this. The worst case scenario would be I tweeted it and everyone slams on the site and it used more than 2.5%. But I don't think it's to be a problem. If I see Hanselman shutting down, that's my symptom. If I go up here and see this, and see errors, and see seconds, that'll be a problem. Then I'll auto-scale. Does that answer your question? Cool. Thanks. How do you express what I just said at a pricing calculator? You don't. That pricing calculator sucks.
Okay, so that was a fantastic answer. That was the longest, best answer we've ever had for this group. Happy, George?
Sorry. I mean, how do you explain that? You know what I mean? It's one of those things where it's like, I hate Windows.
George
really?
never smiles, by the way. Never happy
like,
with an
this
answer.
This is the thing. It's the same thing with Windows 8, right? I hate Windows.
Yeah, I found his pain for it. So.
Yeah, we're just right there. No, dude, you're totally with me. It's the same thing with Windows 8. I don't like it. Really?
So
you're going to work in this thing for 40 hours. You won't take 5 minutes to learn it. Same thing with Azure. He had a lousy experience. That doesn't change the fact that his experience was lousy. But you can't judge everything on that lousy experience.
That was awesome. We'll ask another couple. We'll go with Chris Anderson. He's been scarred. He's written 3 books on Silverlight and XAML. But here we go.
Why are we laughing? That's great.
It's not related to that.
No, that's great, though. XAML's awesome.
Thanks. Actually, you covered a lot of what I was going to ask in your answer to George, so that was great. I'll just clarify, because I'm trying to release a website at the moment, I was hoping to host it on Azure. I need a custom domain and an SSL certificate, which means that I have to use a standard instance.
That's true.
And it comes out at $80 to $90 a month.
Do you have any other things going on a website in Azure?
I'm hoping to in the future, but at the moment, one client running this application. And I was, so you mentioned back in August in one of your blog posts that an extra small instance was coming. Do you have any idea what sort of timeline? Because I need to go live soon and I may have to find an alternative means because...
This guy's asleep. That's the guy? I don't know. Soonish? I have no idea. And SSL is another thing where, if you need an IP-based SSL, then you need an actual IP address. You're going to pay for that. But if you don't care about IE6 and XP, then you can go SNI. You can save money that way as well. This is the thing about Azure. Is it yet competing with a $5 host? No, it's just not. Can I do this on a $5 host? Sure, right? If I want to manage the VM. Can I do the flexibility and the scale of the kind of stuff that I'm doing here? Yeah, but I'm not everybody. One person, one site, one SSL certificate, you want to host it on Azure. Yeah, it'll probably, you're going to pay a premium for that. But everything, all the other sites after that will be effectively free. Like I can add a site all day long and it's free.
It seems to be, for what I'm doing, a little bit too expensive.
A little bit,
and yeah, I was hoping the extra small instance might cover that, but
yeah, probably not until the spring. I could ask the guy if he was awake, but I'm going to guess sometime in the first half of next year, and then that'll be $15, and then it'll be no problem. But if you do anything else between now and then, that would be, that'll be different. And like for example here, I just shut this guy down to try to save money, and then I realized he's in here. He doesn't cost me a penny, so I turned it back on.
Okay, thanks, Scott. Looks like Keith Longworth has a question. He runs some large transport systems.
Hi, Scott. Open source has obviously been responsible for a lot of innovation on the web and speed of change, but probably a lot of complexity as well.
Yeah.
Do you see any frameworks becoming dominant in the near future, or will we continue with this large amount of diversity?
Oh man, that's a great question. You guys heard that? Right, open source and a lot of complexity. I made a joke at the keynote over in Brissy, and I said that whatever framework you pick for your startup, it's the wrong one. Because it is, right? Rails is great. Kind of flat growth, it's great. Node, also great. Complicated. Why? Well, like the example I make is that Node people like to go and make, here's a web server in 6 lines. Here's Hello World in 4 lines. That's cool. I'm not disrespecting Node. These are not necessarily opinions. But if I add date support and do like complicated date calculations, well, Node doesn't have that out of the box. So you bring in a library. Well, which one? If you look at Ghost, Ghost is a blogging engine. And if you find Ghost and you look at the code, you might say it's complicated. It's not complicated. This is Ghost. There's a lot of code in the main part of Ghost. But if I look at node modules, those are all the different modules that Ghost needs to do its job. That's a lot. Node people, any Node people here? Where are my Node friends? Any Node people? No one here? Node? Node guy. You're a Node guy now. Would you agree that you can say, look, Node's just this? But if you look at Node modules and the dependencies, you can say, well, yeah, but there is that 40 megs of Node stuff that I need. What do you get for that? What does he get for that? Well, he gets choice. He gets flexibility. ASP.NET's arguably doing that, wouldn't you say? Packages.config, Node modules. Node doesn't have a BCL, a base class library. We have system.date. They have JavaScript. We have system.text.regularExpressions. They have JavaScript. If I want to go and add in a date thing, so like you know how in Twitter it says 4 seconds ago, or it says 3 hours ago, or yesterday, or 2 weeks ago. That's like moment.js. They have moment.js, which is great. We have nothing. All the base class library gets forgotten about because it's in the GAC. It's in the global assembly cache. So we get to pretend that it doesn't exist and it takes up no space on disk. So you can write an index.aspx and say hello world, and you can look, it's 1 line. Well, that's a lie. As with all layers of abstraction, right? Any additional layer of abstraction is indistinguishable from magic, to steal from a famous science fiction quote. Are Node and .NET any different? Not really. V8, it's a CLR, it's a virtual machine, it's garbage collection, it's libraries. The Node community are packages. NuGet, whether it's in the GAC or whether it's in a packages folder, it's the same thing. It's a virtual machine, it's multi-core, it's jitting, it's threading. They're functional, we're procedural, but we have F#, so we're functional, and people can write Node procedural. It's all the same. The hip-top or hip-hop virtual machine in PHP, same thing. Java, Groovy, Grails, all the same. Now, is one better than the other? I don't know. Spanish, French, German, English, same thing. I say this as a person who's been in the industry writing software for money for 22 years and get off my lawn. Angular, Bootstrap, it's all the same. It's just different people trying to find different ways to do different things in a way that feeds their spirit and makes them happy, and you should do the one that makes you happy. I mean, there's no good answer. And if you're 22 and you write a framework And if I'm 42 and I say, we did that in the 90s, and we did that again in 92, and you are doing it again in 2003, they might find that interesting if they're a student of computer science history, or they may not. Is anything interesting happening? No, not really. We're just trying to plug the Lego pieces together, and every once in a while a new Lego piece comes out. Rails, MVC, awesome. MVC on the client, there are those who say it's dead. Maybe the client just returns JSON and then it's MVC on the client. It's not on the server, rather. MVC on the server, maybe it's dead. MVC on the client, that's the new thing. Just a JavaScript. You know, JavaScript, jar file, bringing bytecode across the wire and running it on the client with a Java plugin, running JavaScript that's minified across the wire and calling it ASM.js and compiling it from C++ through Clang and running it. It's the same thing. I mean, I think it's interesting and it's awesome. It's a great time to be a web developer, and the web will win and bet on the web. But should you pick one or the other? I don't know. Doesn't matter. It's all going to be wrong, and in 10 years, you're going to write it over again. Does that answer your question? You know what I'm saying? Like, it's not an attractive answer, but if you're a student of history, that's true. Node guy, you agree? Right? Were you writing Node 5 years ago? No, didn't exist. Do you like Node? Yes. Does something else come out in 5 years? You're going to write that? Sure you are. Right? ASP.NET Web Forms, ASP.NET MVC, ASP.NET Web API, they're all great. Use them. Don't use them. I don't care. It's a great question, but there's no good answer.
Okay, I'll take a question right up the back. This might be one of the last ones. It's Adam Siskala. He's an ERP developer.
A what IP? What?
ERP.
ERP. Okay,
yeah,
cool.
Boring
ERP.
stuff.
Yes. ERP developer.
It's a little bit on the same lines
great.
as the last question. Just in Visual Studio 2013, there's been a lot of work on integration with TFS, and also, you know, Git's been brought in, as you mentioned earlier, but the Git support is pretty immature, and we don't.
Really?
Yeah, well, compared to, like, say, CodeLens is a new feature where you can get a lot of deep insight into, you know, how things are on TFS.
I think that things like CodeLens are separate from being able to do, like, just source control.
Yeah, of course, but just, you know, that's
insights
more
into your source. Yes,
exactly,
absolutely
and it's you know, deeper integration into that source control in your IDE.
I agree.
So how do you see you know, that sort of feature parity between, you know, the Git and the TFS, or, you know, more generically, I guess, the Microsoft traditional, you know, closed source solution and these open source ventures that are coming? And just, you know, where is the end point of it? How, you know, does that, you know, continue developing side by side, or do you see personally, you know, Microsoft moving in one direction or another, you know, following their traditional route, or moving towards the open source solutions?
So this is my opinion. No, I'm just telling you, this is my opinion. I'm not Brian Harry. Brian Harry owns TFS and TFS Online, and he owns this stuff. And there's Guthrie staring me right there in the face, so don't say anything wrong is what this, him popping up there means. Guthrie just like woke up apparently. I don't know, it's like 1:30 in the morning. Like, what are you doing awake? Guthrie, look at this man's a beast. Should we talk to him? Yeah, that's not going to be a problem at all. So now I can't talk to you because I'm freaking out. Let's just hope that he's really, that's just his phone. So now you've messed me up, I can't talk. TFS, it's pretty clear from what Brian Harry and the teams are doing, is a ALM lifecycle management system. But the word TFS, when you said it, for the longest time meant source control, and you had strong opinions about it. You either liked it or you didn't. It's clear that like TF service and TF, the source control provider, Team Foundation's source control, is its own thing. And they've done a pretty decent job of making it clear that it's totally swappable. So if you like the Scrum stuff and the lifecycle management and the CodeLens and all those kind of things, we've just brought in Git. Git is out of the box in 2013. It's clear to me that he wants to enable all the same kind of deep analytical tools and burn down stuff for Scrum and all the kind of stuff that you get in TFS on Git. And he wants to make it so you can pick. If you want centralized source control, Team Foundation source control is there. If you want distributed, Git is there. And I've heard everything points to dedication to supporting both and making them both deep. Now, the stuff that we're doing to make Git work and all the stuff that we're doing with libgit and libgit sharp and all that kind of stuff, that's all open source and that's going to continue. But as far as whether we're going to bring in other open source tools for analytics and stuff in Team Foundation, I don't know. I do know that they're trying to seem to move all of that online. Like Visual Studio Online is a tool that's updating on a regular basis. They're putting new features in like every couple of weeks. And it's interesting to see the difference between the tools that they update in Visual Studio every kind of quarter, every 6 months, the integrated tools, with what they do on the web. And it seems like at some point they're going to have to kind of pick one. There's the hosted stuff. It's almost like what they're doing is they're playing on a hosted playground. They can update it and do crazy stuff every 2 weeks, and then they pick the features that they want, and then they bring it down into the quarterly or half-yearly updates. As far as how that relates to what they're going to pick in open source, I can't speak to it. I do know that I like that we have choice. I like that if you're a TFS person but you prefer Git, you can use like Git TF. And I like that they let us use Git. And personally, I use both the Git stuff in VS. I use GitHub for Windows. One of the things that I really like about GitHub for Windows as it relates to Visual Studio is that changes you make here are instantly updated in VS. And my buddy Phil Hack, I don't know if you guys have seen this. You remember in Quake, you push the tilde button. Remember the tilde, the little thing that goes above the N when you're speaking Spanish? In Quake, when you push tilde, it would pop up the tilde button would pop up a console. Well, the same thing happens in GitHub for Windows. It pops up PowerShell in the folder of where you're currently looking and automatically updates your PowerShell prompt with poshgit with plus 2 items added, 9 items changed, none deleted. And I can make changes here and it updates in VS. And everyone seems to get along very well because it's all ultimately just libgit2 underneath. So choice, I think, is where they're going. That's my answer, choice. I move freely between them all and I don't even think about it.
I believe that you'll see huge investments in the Git side of things.
In the Git side of things?
Yeah, I can tell.
Yeah, I know that they added multiple remotes recently. And
I would expect a lot of the newer features to end up supporting Git first.
You think so?
I think so.
Huh? I don't know.
But I don't know.
I don't know those guys.
There's just a couple of things. I might ask you a question before, since I didn't get a question.
Yeah, sure. My PayPal is... Oh, no, that wasn't your question? Oh, my bad. Sorry.
Tell us the future of Knockout. I
don't know. Ask Steve Sanderson.
But what do you think?
I don't know. I haven't talked to Steve Sanderson. Steve Sanderson owns Knockout. I don't know. What does Steve say?
You know, there's Steve and a couple of guys.
Yeah, ask them.
Versus AngularJS.
I don't know. Angular is MVC on the client, and Knockout is MVVM on the client. I think there's room for both of them. I personally think that MVVM is a great pattern if you're going to be doing, like, rich client apps. Like I'm working on a Windows Phone app, and I'm going to make it work in Windows 8. That's MVVM. That makes sense. Text boxes over data, yeah, MVVM. MVC on the client, I kind of prefer MVC on the server and then MVVM on the client. So I think there's room enough for both patterns. Okay. Sorry, I mean, I don't have a, this is the thing, I'm a community guy, right? So when I have a question about someone in the community is doing it, I'll ask that guy or gal.
So without any further ado, can we thank Scotty for a wonderful night? I've been running SSW for 20 years. I've also been a lecturer at the University of Technology, Sydney for many years, and I think the gap is getting wider between what they're being taught and what employers need for the guys to hit the ground running and be able to do real work.
Looking for a job as a junior developer can be really tough. There are so many applicants out there, and it's really hard for an employer to separate one from the other. They try really hard, but it's a challenge for them.
One of the problems when you come out of university is everything you learn at university isn't directly transferable into the enterprise.
I think I've seen all the problems that companies are having with new recruits. That's why we created Bootcamp.
The Bootcamp is a place where you'll go for 9 weeks, 40 to 60 hours a week, and do one thing and one thing only. That is learn to code in Microsoft technologies.
You're going to be learning MVC5, HTML5, These technologies are really important because the uptake in the industry is huge. So this course will just fill that gap between university and starting work.
At the boot camp, you have a mentor, and that mentor gets you over a challenge you may have straight away, so you can go on to the next challenge. Instead of sitting there for hours searching Google and trying to find answers that sometimes you just can't find.
It's important to have a mentor because it stops you going off track. It stops you getting stuck on things that aren't really important. It happens time and time again where people are going through things that are found on the internet.
What they really need is experience and hands-on coding. And this boot camp is going to give people the hands-on experience in coding for 9 weeks. Because if you can do as opposed to learn, you have your best chance at getting job ready for your first job in the industry.
It's not an easy course. For 9 weeks, you're thrown into the fire. You live and breathe .NET code. You live and breathe learning best practices and working as part of the team. You'll be working a minimum of 40 hours and mostly 60 hours a week, every week.
Becoming job ready is more than just learning how to write code. You need to know how to work in a team, you need to know how to gather requirements, you need to know how to use the tool set, the Microsoft stack of tools. And during the boot camp, we're going to be teaching you all these other aspects, the soft skills of development that, by yourself, learning from a book, learning through Google or videos, you just will never learn.